Hello, can I help you?
My name's Sue Bentley. Is Amy Johnson there?
I'm afraid not. I'm her assistant. Can I take a message?
I'm running a seminar in Amy's department next Thursday. The provisional title was Dealing with Overseas Clients. Could you please tell Amy I've changed it to International Communication instead?
Certainly. Anything else?
Yes, I've seen the rooms Amy recommended. I like the presentation room best, but it's too small for all 20 participants, so I'd better have the boardroom. One more thing. I can deal with photocopying the slides myself, but if Amy could provide photocopies of the feedback form for everyone, that'd be great.
Okay, got that.
And could you also mention that she's welcome to keep hold of one of the books I've lent her, Working Overseas? But I do need the other one back in time for the seminar. It's called Global Partnerships. That's all. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome.
Sarah Williams, please.
I'm afraid she's not available right now.
Oh. Can you ask her to call me back? Brian Jones. It's urgent.
Of course. Can I ask what it's about?
You tell her there's been a mix-up yet again. Instead of plain paper, we've got headed paper. Last month, we even got lined paper.
I do apologise. I'll ask her to phone you as soon as possible. She's at lunch at the moment, and then she'll be in a training session, but I'll make sure she contacts you when that finishes.
We need the goods by Thursday. Otherwise our production line will be held up and we'll miss our deadlines. If you can't sort it out, we'll have to change supplier. We can't afford to wait around.
Of course.
And another thing. The amount owing on the invoice is given in full. That's not right. I thought we'd agreed I'd settle the bill by instalments. I could pay half now, but I'm not prepared to.
I'm sure she can sort something out.
New Vision Conference Department, Janet Edwards speaking.
Hello, this is Nick Brown from Business News. I hear you're running a rather special conference in Newcastle.
You mean our event on the 10th of October?
Yes. Can you tell me something about it so I can mention it in our paper?
Certainly. The name should give you a clue. We're calling it Innovations, not the usual better sales techniques, etc.
That sounds very forward-looking. I assume it's about new developments in technology?
We thought there were too many seminars on that. We're focusing on human resources instead.
New ways of approaching it, I suppose. Interesting. So, who have you got to lead it?
Well, this is a little different too. Daniel Christie.
Is he the man from Cambridge Business School who's just written that book on incentive schemes?
I believe teamwork is actually his field.
So, for example, the way people interact. Any other special features?
We're planning some practical and very unusual workshops about motivation. I think that'll cause a few surprises.
How unusual?
Come and see for yourself. I'll send you a complimentary ticket.
Thank you. I will.
13.
Sure, the relocation plan is attractive. But just look at the costs. And this just isn't a good time to be spending that sort of money. Why not make the most of what we've got, instead of starting from scratch? Keep our present location, strip it down, and completely redesign and redecorate our existing workspace. I think we could be far more efficient without such a huge outlay.
14.
Well, I feel that we're just not making enough profit to sustain the kind of growth we need. Obviously, production costs have increased, and I don't think we've taken that into account nearly enough. Introducing a competitive pricing strategy wouldn't mean that we couldn't take inflation into account, and we should certainly consider this before the end of the year. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves selling it below cost.
15.
Time equals money, and you just have to look at the amount of time we spend, waste, travelling from place to place to realise that this is costing us too much. We're duplicating a lot of services and systems which we wouldn't have to do if we streamlined our offices. Operating from one location instead of 4 would lead to greater control, considerable reduction in costs, and increased efficiency. Staff would appreciate it too.
I think that there's a danger. We're over-diversified, and instead of looking at our production processes and ways of automating them even further, what we should be doing is targeting our most successful lines and focusing on them, even if it means abandoning some lines altogether. What I'm talking about is specialization. Concentrate on what we know we do well and what we know will make money. And that'll bring down costs, too.
We're relying too heavily on past success, without thinking about where we go from here. You can't just rely on maintaining productivity. Prices of raw materials are rising, and our overheads are enormous. Look at what we're spending on buildings alone. In this business, you have to run just to stay in the same place. We've got to constantly improve, and that means getting more produced faster and better.
18.
I'm afraid we really need to finish the project as soon as possible. If we don't keep to the schedule, the delay could lose us our external funding. Losing that could lead to various problems, including salaries not being paid on time. Don't forget as well that the budget depends on us finishing by the end of the summer. No, we need to keep to our original plans and keep that money coming in.
19.
As you can see, the figures speak for themselves. Our model EXG surpassed all forecasts in its first year. Because of our competitive pricing policy, it has been selling extremely well. However, we want to extend this trend and build on it. We now need to come up with a campaign to make sure we increase the number of models we sell abroad, not just on the domestic market. Japan is our main target.
20.
Right. Let's see where we've gotten to. We've agreed to recognize when staff have worked hard and achieved their goals. Sales need to have done reasonably well in their area, ideally better than the forecasts, while keeping within budget. And if we feel a person is worth substantial investment, we can go with a 5% pay rise, as well as offering a bonus in exceptional circumstances.
21.
The figures show quite clearly that we didn't reach the target we set last year. If anything, I think we ought to cut back on spending, at least for the next few months. If sales pick up in the new year, and we manage to add new clients to our base, maybe we can think about buying more estate and equipment then. If I may say so, we have to be realistic.
22.
What were last year's figures? Not too good, I see. Sales in the US were down, but it looks as though they were more or less constant in Asia. However, the worldwide market's pretty buoyant at the moment. Forecasts do seem more optimistic, and our investment looks sound. So, yeah, let's go along with that. We'll allocate $400,000 for the first quarter. That's an 8% increase on last year. We should be able to keep within that.
Oh, Gareth, do sit down.
Thank you.
Now, presumably you've considered this case study about Trident appliances.
Yes.
Good. Well, let's start with the present situation. Trident manufactures photocopiers, which they sell in bulk to retailers and large organisations. Now, why do you think they're having trouble selling them?
It's strange because there's a big demand for photocopiers, and Tridents are competitively priced, but the specifications just don't compare with what's expected these days. It's a shame because they've got plenty of technical expertise in their engineering support team.
OK. Now, the company is owned by a large multinational. How do they see Trident?
Well, the group is largely in the mining sector, and Trident doesn't fit in with that, so you'd expect the parent company to want to sell it, or alternatively to be active, say by helping it to expand its markets. But really it seems quite content to take a hands-off approach, as long as Trident is generating some income.
There's clearly poor morale among the employees. Why do you think that is?
Well, weak line managers are often a reason, but I can't find any evidence for that here. And even the recent changes, like the cut in bonuses, have been accepted fairly calmly. I think it reflects people's uncertainty about their long-term prospects with the company.
What would you say about the sales staff? There's a lot about them in the case study.
They're doing the best they can in the circumstances. There's a system for helping them to develop their selling skills, and that's working. The way customers are allocated to each salesperson could be improved, maybe, to reduce unnecessary travel. But they're getting contradictory signals about what they're supposed to be doing, just responding to inquiries or going out looking for new business.
And what about the service engineers? What's the main weakness in that department?
They seem to miss a lot of opportunities. When they visit a customer to install or repair a photocopier, it's their chance to look at all the equipment there and suggest how Trident could supply the company's needs better. Then there's their problem with spares. The parts services department keeps stocks low for financial reasons. But that means the engineers often can't get the parts they need for call-outs, and the customer has to wait.
Now, what about communications within the company? I'm sure you'll agree they're not as good as they could be. Why do you think that is?
Well, I was a bit surprised because, in fact, middle managers hold regular meetings with their departments. But that's because they're given information by the top management about policy issues and plans, for instance, which they have to pass on. But I have to say that some of them don't seem to think their staff can have anything to say that's worth hearing. And, of course, this creates ill feeling.
Okay. Now, if you think about the chief executive's problems for a moment, what do you think he needs to tackle first?
There are so many problems. Something needs to be done about the workforce because some departments employ staff without the necessary training. In the long term, of course, they need to develop the photocopiers themselves. But the priority must be to reverse the fall in revenue, even if it means cutting prices, in order to increase the sales volume. Unless they do that, they'll go out of business very soon.
And what about their advertising?
Well, they're using modern media, like the Internet, and targeting their advertising more than they used to, for instance, by moving from magazine ads to direct mail shots to companies. But these have an old-fashioned feel to them. The layout and graphics don't seem to have changed for 20 years.
Right. Now, let's go on to...